Women's Health said women were happier single. Now, The Atlantic is saying the opposite in this article. The Marriage Effect by Jean M. Twenge. The head tagline: A common narrative has it that commitment and motherhood make women unhappy. New data suggests the opposite is true. Let's see what the data really says about marriage and who it's actually helping. But before we do all that, be sure to give this video a like, comment your thoughts along the way, subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations, and last but certainly not least, feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. When I was deciding whether to have children in the early 2000s, most of what I read about the prospect was negative. Articles detailed the sleep deprivation, the physical challenges of pregnancy, the sheer overwhelmingness of motherhood. If you want to be happy, these writers warned, don't have children. You might not want to get married either. After all, marriage research suggested, mostly benefits men. Did those writers not know about divorce court? Friends and family had few positive things to say, especially about parenting. When I asked parents I knew about the disadvantages of having children, I got an earful about tantrums, childcare difficulties, and the lack of time to yourself. You don't sleep for 18 years, one cousin confided. When I would ask about advantages, there was usually a long, awkward pause. It makes you less selfish, one aunt offered. Not a convincing argument for a fiercely independent, career-minded woman such as myself. I mean, some, like born into a corrupt system, would argue that it makes you more selfish to have children. Personally, I say, if you really think your life will benefit from having children, go for it. If someone doesn't want to, leave them alone. The same sentiments are prevalent in today's online conversations and news reports. Women are happier without children or a spouse, says happiness expert. One headline reads. Another reveals, why so many single women without children are happy. People post in discussion forums asking, why do you think that single, unmarried women without children are happier than married women with children? They probably have a lot more peace because they don't have to deal with all the problems that were mentioned earlier. Now, some would say that they're not experiencing the deeper level of happiness, but honestly, at a certain point, you have to either be willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary when it comes to actually raising a kid well, or you have to just embrace the fact that you don't want kids, which is not selfish. But are married mothers actually less happy than single women without children? That's one of the questions that, along with my colleagues Jeanette Erickson, Wendy Wang, and Brad Wilcox, I set out to answer by conducting a nationally represented survey of 3,000 American women ages 25 to 55, fielded by YouGov in March 2025. Hey, just like how I studied how my movement and going places affected my performance in the algorithm. What we found contradicts the negative messages that I had come across. Married mothers are actually happier than unmarried women and married women without children. In the survey, 19% of married mothers described themselves as very happy, compared with 11% of married women without children, 13% of unmarried mothers, and 10% of unmarried women without children. Married mothers were also more likely to say that life is enjoyable most or all of the time than the other three groups. The numbers are controlled for age, family income, and education, so we know that those factors aren't the cause of the differences. So, what if a married mother and an unmarried woman make the exact same income? Did you take into account the fact that the married mothers would have more expenses compared to the unmarried women? I feel like there should be there should have been something taken into account for that. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. These findings are not a one-off. Well-respected sources, such as the General Social Survey, show the same result. Married mothers and fathers in that survey were more likely to report being very happy than unmarried people and those without children. Another recent study found that married or partnered mothers are less likely to frequently feel depressed or anxious than people in the other three groups. Could be that they have a partner to fall back on. I mean, another thing I think they could have tried controlling for is perceived quality of the partners. Like, that's something I'd like to know more about. Could it be not that marriage produces happiness, but the causation goes the other way? That happier people are more likely to marry. One study controlled for premarital happiness levels and still found that marriage results in happier people and a less intense dip in life satisfaction at middle age. That's not to say the roles of wife and mother don't have their challenges. Roughly two-thirds of mothers in our survey, for example, said that they felt overwhelmed each day, though so did more than half of non-mothers. About 6 in 10 mothers said that they wished they had more time to themselves, compared with about 4 out of 10 childless women. Why then are mothers happier? The reasons speak to the profound experience of parenthood. Married mothers were the most likely to agree that their life has a clear sense of purpose, 28%, followed closely by unmarried mothers, 25%. Only approximately 15% of women without children agreed. Mothers were also more likely than non-mothers to agree that their life feels meaningful all or most of the time. Yeah, probably because the deeply ingrained biology when it comes to having and raising kids. And they are of sound mind as well, as far as I can tell. My 2 cents on this is going back to the challenges. Yeah, I bet that people feel overwhelmed by both the cost of living and having to take care of a kid. The 4 out of 10 childless women who wish they had more time to themselves probably also have other things they need to take care of, where they have demanding jobs on top of, I don't know, maybe they're caring for an aging parent. As for the feeling overwhelmed each day, the reason that only half of non-mothers compared to two-thirds of mothers is because there is the cost of living to worry about, and yes, having children is going to add to the list of things to worry about. If you're single, yeah, if groceries become more expensive or other essentials go up in price, who would actually like that? Well, maybe the corporations. But other than that, no one's a fan of prices like that going up. Actually, the corporations wouldn't be fans of it either, because that means people are just going to go for the cheaper options or something like that. It's a two-way street. I'll do a separate video about that another day. But yeah, if you're a parent who has to worry about making sure they have money for being able to meet the basic needs of yourself and your child or children, and you also want to provide a certain level of quality of life, as in you want to be able to give them birthday parties and all of that stuff, you're going to be a lot more overwhelmed than the someone who only has to worry about themselves and maybe a romantic partner or an aging parent. Getting back to the article, I now have 3 children, and I am somewhat incredulous that in my pre-motherhood inquiries, no one mentioned the sense of purpose parenthood gives you. Yes, you're going to be tired and overwhelmed, but there's a deep knowledge that you're doing something important with your life. You're nurturing a human being. These feelings of purpose and meaning are sometimes difficult to put into words, perhaps why they aren't regularly discussed, but they are central to being a parent. I am fortunate to have a career I love and find meaningful. Even so, the sense of purpose I have found through motherhood dwarfs every career milestone I have ever achieved. just like one of Chuck Norris's principles for life. No success in something can ever compensate for a failure in the home. Yeah, it's probably difficult to put into words because for a lot of human history, let's just be honest, it didn't really need to be put into words. Up until a certain point, it was just assumed that you were going to have children. It was a question of when, not if. Today, obviously, that is a different story, and personally, I think it is for the better. And I'm not just saying that because I'm someone who does not want to have kids. It's better that people who don't want to have kids aren't forced into it because, again, terrible arrangement for both parties involved. Getting back to the article, the survey results also showed that marriage comes with several advantages. Married women are about half as likely to report being lonely as unmarried women. One factor may be that married women are more likely, they report, to regularly receive physical affection and touch. Touch is, in turn, strongly linked to happiness. 22% of women in the survey who experienced a high level of physical touch were very happy, compared with only 7% of those who received a low level of touch. Touch, especially from a spouse, is affected with reduced stress, increased trust, and greater feelings of safety. I wonder if that's Pedro Pascal's line of reasoning for getting handsy with Vanessa Kirby. The false narrative that marriage and motherhood are a recipe for women's unhappiness is doing a lot of damage. In a nationally representative survey that I analyzed for my book, Generations, the number of 18-year-old women who expected to have children plummeted by 11 percentage points from the late 2000s to the early 2020s. Negative messaging about marriage and motherhood is likely at the root of these Gen Z shifts, along with a pervasive pessimism about everything egged on by social media that borders on doomerism. Young people are profoundly lonely and spend less time with their peers in person. The consequences for their adult relationships are unknown. Recent trends are even more concerning. AI girlfriends and boyfriends now offer the prospect of relationships with an always available entity that has no needs of its own. Meanwhile, the fertility rate in the US is at an all-time low. Yeah, I try to take a neutral stance on it and say one size does not fit all. I personally, again, do not want to get married and have kids because I cannot deal with the unpredictable nature of children. I talked about in my video about how the best way to figure out if you want to have kids is to spend time taking care of them gradually, more independently from their parents, whether it's your niece or nephew or something like that. Or in my case, I just walked around the grocery store. I noticed children misbehaving at random to the point that I would have to turn around, go down a different aisle, and come back. And this is why I prefer online ordering, by the way, because I don't have to deal with that. One size does not fit all. Some people are willing to deal with things like that. Some people are more willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary. Some people prefer not having to deal with that kind of thing. There are many reasons people choose not to have children or not to get married, like men avoiding divorce court, but false messages about happiness should not be one of them. The articles I read long ago were right that parenting and marriage can often be exhausting, but they ignored the sense of meaning that comes from parenthood and the connection of physical touch at the core of family life. After all, an AI boyfriend can't hug you back, to say nothing of an AI child. What I think the ultimate takeaway should be is if people want to get married and have a family, they should be free to do so. If someone doesn't want to, even if the economy is perfect, even if it's just like when the boomers were growing up and they had an easier time buying houses and such and they still wouldn't, I say Leave them the fuck alone and respect people's decisions, even if you don't agree. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about all this. Don't forget to also like the video, subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations, and last but certainly not least, feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.